Some people do not love you. They love being necessary to you. And for a long time, those two things can feel almost impossible to separate from the inside. The constant help. The instinct to step in before you have even finished explaining the problem. The way they seem to always know exactly what you need before you ask. The disappointment that flickers across their face when you quietly handle something difficult on your own and forget to tell them afterward. At first, it feels like care. It feels like devotion. And often, in some genuine sense, it is devotion. But there is a simple test that reveals the difference between love and dependency dressed as love. Need them a little less. Then watch carefully what changes. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan spent decades building what later became known as self-determination theory, a framework designed to understand what human beings actually need in order to grow and function well psychologically. Their research identified 3 needs that appear consistently across cultures and circumstances. Competence, the feeling that you are capable and effective. Relatedness, the experience of genuine connection with other people. And autonomy, the sense that your choices and actions belong to you rather than being controlled from somewhere outside yourself. What Deci and Ryan discovered matters here in a very specific way. Relationships that support all 3 of these needs tend to produce healthier outcomes than relationships supporting only 1 or 2. And importantly, relationships built around closeness alone are not enough, because relatedness without autonomy creates something very different from healthy connection. You can be loved constantly, cared for constantly, included constantly, and still slowly begin losing yourself. The nervous system experiences blocked autonomy as a kind of ongoing tension, even when warmth and affection are wrapped around it. And this is the mechanism hiding beneath caretaking that has quietly become control. The care may be entirely real, but if the relationship only functions smoothly while you remain dependent, then one psychological need is being fed while another is being starved. Eventually, the starvation begins to show. The family system that cannot tolerate separateness. Psychiatrist Murray Bowen, whose work shaped much of modern family systems theory, introduced a concept called differentiation of self. Differentiation refers to the ability to remain emotionally close to people you love while still maintaining a clear sense of your own identity, to stay connected without disappearing into someone else. Bowen also described what happens at the opposite end of that spectrum, a condition called enmeshment. In enmeshed systems, emotional boundaries become blurred. One person's needs become everyone else's needs. One person's distress becomes everyone else's responsibility. Individual identities begin merging together until separateness itself starts feeling uncomfortable. Inside systems like these, independence can feel threatening. Not because anyone consciously wants harm, but because the entire emotional structure was built around closeness, achieved through dependence. Bowen observed that caretakers inside these systems often struggle with another person's growth in ways they themselves do not fully understand, because your growing competence changes something fundamental. It removes the role that organized the relationship. The caretaker is often not upset because you are doing well. They are unsettled because the version of closeness they understand depended on you needing them. The high that comes from being needed. There is also a biological layer to this that helps explain why the pattern can become so powerful. Research into what is often called the helper's high has shown that helping others activates reward-related systems in the brain, including pathways associated with dopamine. Alan Lux, who conducted some of the earliest large-scale work on this effect, found that many people described helping others in ways that sounded remarkably similar to other rewarding experiences. A lift in mood, a feeling of energy, a sense of purpose. None of this is unhealthy by itself. Helping people is one of the most reliable sources of meaning available to human beings. Most people who help others are not creating dependency intentionally. The problem appears when helping becomes the entire foundation of someone's identity, because if being needed becomes the primary source of worth, then another person's independence begins creating a problem. Your growth does not simply change the relationship. It removes the thing supplying the reward. And for someone whose identity depends heavily on that reward, your increasing competence can begin to feel less like pride and more like loss, sometimes even something resembling withdrawal, teaching someone that they cannot cope. The more serious version of this pattern connects to research on learned helplessness originally identified by psychologist Martin Seligman. Seligman's early work suggested something important. Helplessness is often learned rather than inherent. Repeated experiences can teach someone that effort does not matter, eventually leading them to stop trying, even when opportunities become available. Later research extended these ideas into relationships. What happens when one person constantly steps in before another person has the opportunity to struggle, attempt, fail, adjust, and eventually succeed? The intervention does not need to be controlling. It can be loving, it can be generous, it can be entirely well-intentioned. And still, over time, it can quietly send the same message. You do not need to do this. You cannot do this. I will do it for you. Repeated enough times, that message begins settling into the nervous system. And eventually, the person receiving that care may start doubting abilities that never actually disappeared. They simply never had enough space to prove themselves. This is the hidden cost of relationships organized around dependency. Because sometimes the person meeting your needs is also preventing you from discovering that many of those needs were never as large as you believed. This also explains something many people describe when they begin stepping away from these patterns. The guilt, the sudden sharp feeling that appears the moment they solve something alone. The discomfort that arrives when they stop asking for help. That guilt often feels like evidence that something wrong happened, but very often it is not evidence at all. It is conditioning. Years of dependency being rewarded can quietly train the nervous system to experience independence as disloyalty, not because independence actually is betrayal, but because the old structure learned to treat it that way. And conditioned responses do not require genuine wrongdoing. They only require repetition. Recognizing that difference changes everything, because guilt driven by morality asks you to repair something. Conditioned guilt asks you to shrink yourself back into an older shape, even when nothing needs repairing at all. What healthier care actually looks like. None of this means helping people is dangerous. None of it means care itself should become suspicious. Deci and Ryan's broader research was very clear on that point. Connection matters deeply. Care matters deeply. Giving matters deeply. The question is not whether someone helps you. The question is, what happens when help stops being necessary? Healthy love tends to celebrate growth, even if that growth makes the other person slightly less needed, because their identity was never resting entirely on your struggle. Dependency-based relationships often react differently. They may withdraw, they may subtly sabotage. They may wrap guilt inside concern and present it as care, because without your dependence, they no longer know where to stand. If you have ever felt strangely guilty for succeeding quietly, for solving something on your own, or for needing someone a little less than you used to, that feeling was not always proof that you had done something wrong. Very often it was proof of something else. It was evidence that you were growing inside a system that quietly depended on your staying small. Healthy love does not need your limitation in order to survive. It survives your strength. It survives your competence. In many ways, it prefers it. And if something in your life seems to function best only while you are struggling, then what was asking you to remain there may never have been love at all. It may simply have been a structure built slowly and often without anyone fully noticing, asking you to remain where it could still reach you. You are allowed to become larger than the role someone else needed you to keep playing.